Hello, friends. This is Dorie Clark, and we're here with our weekly Newsweek interview show, Better. And the guest this week is my friend Salima Gharani. Salima is the founder of a new startup. It's called Happioh, and she is going to tell us how she went from zero to raising $1 million for her startup without any startup experience, which is kind of exciting because I think it is an important message for all of us that I'm a longstanding fan of reinvention. And so if you want to reinvent yourself, even in a new area about which you really don't know too much to start, you can find a way to do it. And we're going to tell you exactly how. Salima, welcome.
Thank you so much. I've been so excited to see you. And thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. And if you are tuning in live and joining us, please feel free to type into the chat box and let us know who you are and where you are dialing in from. We want to say hello and thank you for being here. So, Salima, the first question that I have for you, if someone is in a similar position, if they are interested perhaps in launching a startup, or even just tackling a new thing that they have never done before, they have basically no baseline knowledge aside from general cultural literacy. What would you recommend? Can you talk to us a little bit about how you educated yourself into your new career as a startup founder?
Absolutely. I've always believed that it is actually an advantage to be an amateur, to not knowing what you're doing. There are several moments in history where it has shown that not knowing the full consequence of what you're doing is actually an advantage.
Ignorance
So
is bliss.
ignorance is a bliss, and it's really something that we don't hear much about. We think we have to study hard and bring in a lot of experience every time we reinvent ourselves, but nothing could be more wrong. What really should drive you is, of course, some kind of passion or interest, something that motivates you or inspires you, right? Because the truth is, if there is a what would you call a founder product fit, meaning if you know something about the product, or if you are passionate about whatever theme that is, that you want to launch a startup around, you're most likely going to be successful. Of course, it's not that easy, but first and foremost, be passionate about something. Maybe it's just a problem you want to fix. I've seen so many startups that have been started by moms who suddenly had a child who got diabetes, or suddenly had a teenage daughter that didn't could get access to X or Y or whatever drives you. It might even be driven from a personal problem that you are determined to fix. Determination is hard to beat, Dorie. I mean, if you're determined, it's hard to beat, right? So I think that's the first thing you should look for. Are you passionate about a problem? Do you have an issue or something you really want to do something about? That should be your first thing. But look, this is the fifth time in my life I completely reinvent myself. This is the fourth country I live in. I moved to US 6 years ago as an immigrant, and I'm still here because I love being here. But this is my fourth country, really, and I'm a seventh grade school dropout. I later educated myself a lot. So, but I all the careers that I went into with my head first, but with no knowledge, no previous industry experience. But I always looked for making sure that I felt I had the energy and the grit and resilience to learn new things. I was carefully looking into my network, and could I just identify 2 or 3 people who would know something about the things I probably and most likely would go through, then I felt fine. If I have someone I can call for advice, then I feel fine. And then it has to be meaningful and create a lot of positive feelings in me. And then I'm looking for small achievements. If I have small wins throughout the journey, then it inspires me to keep going. I'm not only looking for the big wins, but the small wins during the week, the month, the year. That's really what keep me going. But yeah, ignorance is a bliss. You don't have to know, you don't have to fully understand what you're doing.
That's fantastic. We're here. This is the Newsweek weekly interview show, Better. I'm Dorie Clark, and we're here with our guest this week, Soulaima Gourani. You can learn more about her and her work at soulaima.com. We're talking about how to go from zero to raising $1 million, as Soulaima has done as a startup founder. And we want to make sure to say hi to some of the great folks who are tuning in. Thank you for being here. We've got our good friend Cheryl from Minneapolis, St. Paul. Karen's joining us from Boston. Raul is just down the street from me in Miami. Lena is here here from Denmark. Maybe that's one of your homies from your previous country, Soulaima. We've got Lori from Menlo Park. Stephen is in Nairobi. Rodell is from the Philippines. Anna is here from Greece. We've got Kaiser from Texas. Natalie from Florida. Janardan from England. We've got Sushma from India. Lynn is here from Washington State, and many more. We're so glad that all of you are here. If you're enjoying the conversation, hit the like and share button so that your friends can benefit from this conversation, so we can all learn how to raise $1 million for our startup. Now, Soulaima, give us a little bit of your backstory. You are the founder of an organization, a startup called Happioh. Now, this is about, you can tell us, but this is about meetings and improving the efficiency of meetings in a corporate environment. How did you decide that this was the thing that you wanted to focus on? And why? Just give us a little backstory. Again, startups were not the thing that you were doing. How did you get set on this enough that you said, okay, this is what I want to dedicate the next, number of years of my life to doing?
Well, it's a good point that you just said right there, and that is dedicating yourself for a number of years. If you build a startup and you start taking capital from investors, angel investors, you really have to be committed, right? So make sure that you're willing to commit yourself and that you love what you're doing and that you have the energy to do that for numbers of years. So that's very important. Well, I used to have a corporate career in Maersk and Hewlett Packard, those huge enterprises. And then I actually became a solopreneur for a number of years. I was writing books, I was speaking all over the world, and then I co-created a few startups with a few other founders, but just small startups, but doing well though. But the major change in my life now is to become a venture-backed startup in Silicon Valley. That's really when entrepreneurship hits the speed button. And for that, you need to raise money. And raising money is something not a lot of people know much about. More now, because more information is distributed online. There's a lot of accelerating programs and stuff. That wasn't the case really 5-10 years ago, not to the same extent as today. So getting access to network and money has never been easier or more accessible. And the knowledge has never been more affordable. So that's a good thing. But if you are a woman of color or in some way diversified founder, it's still very difficult to raise money. As a woman, for instance, if you are a woman of color, we all know being a woman is hard. We only receive 2% of all the venture capital out there. But if you start looking into the numbers, if you're a woman of color, for instance, well, then it's not 2%, it's 0.2% of all the capital that goes to you. So I think you can count on one hand how many have raised as much as we have, or I have as a female founder. So I'm really beating the odds. But I don't wake up in the morning thinking, oh, the statistics looks horrible, I cannot do this. I wake up every morning, Dorie, thinking, hey, awesome, this is great chance, let's go for it. So I don't look at the bad statistics. But to find my grit and resilience, you probably have to, take a look at my upbringing. Being a former foster care child, a 7th grade school dropout, I moved, maybe 30 times in my life. I don't remember all the schools I went to. It's just too many to count. So, I've been used to a lot of, adversity and changes in my life. So doing something new is not something that's very scary. I don't just do it, but I'm not like afraid of failures or anything. But one thing that really drives me a lot is my eager to learn new things. Actually, this morning I woke up, I received an email that I'm most likely going to Cambridge University in 2 weeks. And, this year already, I studied at NTU in Singapore, twice at Wharton. And so I'm really eager to learn things. And that's really something that should drive you. And that's been the one thing throughout my entire life, the willingness to learn and study in the nights or during the weekends to learn the next skills that you need to succeed. And fundraising is really a skill set. I'm sorry to say, it's not just great ideas don't get funded. Great pitches and great visions does. So you really have to understand the mechanisms in raising money, how to do it, what to say, the vocabulary. It's not so much about the network, actually, because people will find you, trust me. But it's really about getting those things straight, being fundable, understanding how to build a business that investors would like to invest in.
Fantastic. We're here with Soulaima Gourani. She is the founder of a startup called Happioh. You can learn more about Soulaima at soulaima.com. And we're talking about how do you go from zero to raising $1 million for your startup, even if you don't have a background as a tech employee or a tech founder. How do you do this as a first-time entrepreneur? You can type your questions for Soulaima into the chat box. And also, I'm curious, for the folks who are tuning in on this call, how have you reinvented yourself? Or are you in the midst of a reinvention now? Type it in. Let us know what you're working on and how you're educating yourself about the next phase of your career. We also want to say hi to some of the great folks who are joining us. Meredith is here from New York City. We have Abosede from Nigeria. We have Mercedes from Mexico City. Amid is here from Istanbul. Elen is here. We've got Annette from Southern California. Umberto is here from Monterrey, Mexico. Yusuf is here from Vancouver. Rudy from France. Ajit is here. Mahendra from India. We have a LinkedIn user from Kazakhstan, which is my favorite country. We have our friend Niels Schreeb from Copenhagen. Hi, Niels. Nice to see you. We have Aline from Brazil. We have Adadoyan back, and Rita Marie is here from Ireland. We're so glad to have all of you and more. Type your questions for Soulaima into the chat box about how to go from 0 to $1 million in your new career. Soulaima, I want to just sort of go deeper on a conversation that we've had offline. I know that you have told me that you really had your own kind of personal educational curriculum, learning about startups, learning especially about fundraising for startups, that you were reading 1 million books, you were listening to 1 million podcasts. You really built a curriculum for yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about what that looked like? What did it consist of? And how did you actually dive in and figure out? I mean, there's a lot of sources out there. How did you understand what you needed to be reading and studying?
Great question. And everything I'm going to share today is something that's affordable. It's something you can do from the comfort of your home. It's something you can do even if you're a busy single parent or you run 2 jobs or whatever. Nothing that I'm gonna share now is something that is impossible for any of us to get our hands on. First, I will say I did start a company here in Palo Alto when I just arrived, called Women Reignite. And you know my background from subscriptions and online communities, and I love educating, speaking, gathering people, and all that. And I really wanted to focus on women, and I wanted them to be elevated and come together in a community where we would bring the best speakers of the world and the role models of the entire universe into that community. And the investors actually laughed. This is just before the pandemic. And they said, why would women come together in an online community learning from, why would they do that? They have everything going on locally where they live and so this was just before the pandemic. And who would have guessed that we would be sitting in our homes for 1 year, almost 2 years, learning this way through Zoom and other platforms. So I gave up that idea, meaning it's still the same company, but I changed the name to Happioh. And I thought about how can I make women happier? How can I improve their life quality? But not by doing it that way. How can I solve the same problem, but from a perspective that is fundable?
Hashtag pivot.
Hashtag pivot. So, and I love software. I love how a lot of softwares have made my life funnier, easier, more comfortable. So I started thinking about, could I build a product that could save people time, help them connect with other people faster, and improve who they are at work, advance their careers. That was really what Women Reignite was all about. But same problem, different solution. So I started thinking about building software. And by all means, I'm not a technical founder. I've never coded a line in my life. And I just knew being a non-technical woman founder, probably not going to succeed that much. So I started listening to podcasts. I simply went online and said, podcast, how to build software podcast, and I listened and listened and listened, walking day in and day out, thousands of steps, sometimes with my tears down my face, because I didn't know how to do this. And I started talking to people. I did the Y Combinator startup school, completely free, awesome curriculum. Still there, just Google Y Combinator startup school. And I took all the modules twice. And that was the basics. And then I did spend a lot of time on Clubhouse when that was really still very active. And I just tune in to everything you can imagine. How to raise your first round, how to build software, how to get the team, how to do all these things. And then I started recruiting people. Hey, do you want to join my startup? We want to free up time for busy people at scale. We want to build, and people love the idea. So here we are, 1.5 years down the road, 11 people, some of the best in the industry, and some of the most amazing investors you can even imagine in the world backing this idea. So I would say I don't know, hundreds of hours. Dorie, I was always with my headset doing my dishes, cooking, whatever, listen, making notes, and just run through all that. And then I started taking more sophisticated classes at Wharton. They have lots of online content. You pay for that though, but really great content just to prepare me for my next round, which is my A round. Most startups never get to that space. And we already have a lead investor that wants to lead the round and 3 million committed for the next round out of 10. And, it's really, really promising. But I could only succeed with that through all the content that I listen to free. There's so much free content out there that is amazing, brilliant content.
That's fantastic, Soulaima. It's such a great reminder that it doesn't take money to get the education that we need nowadays. Mm-hmm. That's the whole promise of the internet, is there is so much out there that we can access if we're just willing to do the work. And we want to say hi to some of the great folks joining us. Barbara is here from Italia. We have Sawai from the UK. We have Iris from New York/Pennsylvania. DT is tuning in from Rochester. We have Spencer joining us. Angeline is here from Montana. We've got Eugenia from Costa Rica. Maureen is tuning in. We're so glad all of you are here. And Annette had a question for you, Soulaima. She wants to know, can you tell us a little bit more about your daily routine when you're in learning/pitching/fundraising mode? There's obviously a million things you could be doing. You could be pulled in a million directions. How do you stay focused? And what is your routine for making that happen?
Oh, that is the best question, because here's the thing. I would almost say 80% of your likelihood of succeeding is really down to how you cope with yourself. So, and this is not even a joke, like 80% is determined by you. So I like to be what I call mentally sober. Sober means from the moment I wake up, what do I think? What do I read? What do I listen to? How do I speak to myself? What kind of conversations do I have with my family? What is my expectations of the day? The mental preparation is really something we don't talk enough about. If you feel great, if you are great, more great people will get starting, being attracted to you, to your energy. People will start talking about you. Hey, who's this person? She's doing something really exciting. Be positive on social media. Don't let yourself be captured in some rabbit hole, some negative. You really have to be mental sober. Think about nutrition. I eat healthy. Before this podcast this morning, I exercised 30 minutes just to keep it going. Really get your rest, get sleep. Try to stay away from, the unhealthy habits, watching too much TV, eating too much sugar, being with negative people. And when you look at, I only have 24 hours a day like everyone else, but what I accomplish throughout a day without feeling stressed is just remarkable, because I optimize and I have this flow of listening and learning, even 2-3 minutes. Sometimes when I brush my teeth, just put something, maybe a little TED talk about something, or just have it as a constant backdrop in your life. Lessons, sessions. I don't know about you, but try to avoid scrolling on social media just for entertainment. Why don't you read a quick article on Medium or Forbes or whatever? You can even have it read out aloud for you if you prefer that with software. So, and those small nuggets, when you bring all that together, it's thousands of hours of education yearly. So, yeah. And my evenings, I still, I study. I'm 47. My children, when they come back from home, when they study and they come in and ask for whatever, a snack or whatever, I'm studying. I'm trying to pass exams online for the time being at Wharton, right? And it's so funny how the entire family is impacted by that, eager to learn, eager to do. I'm not an overachiever. I am maybe a little bit, but I'm not super brilliant. I'm not smarter than anyone, but I do put in the work. I do put in the hours of learning the next skill that I know I need to help. I need to know. I don't like to be in the mercy of other people's competences. I will never become a programmer or engineer. I gave up on that, but I certainly can learn pretty much anything else, really.
So good. I love that. We're here with Soulaima Gourani. She is the founder of the startup Happioh, and you can learn more about Soulaima and her work at soulaima.com. And we are talking about how to go from not being a technical founder, not being immersed in the tech world, to creating your own startup that has raised $1 million. I love this. Sawai from the UK, he says, I joined the session by accident and now I'm hooked. Can't afford to leave. Thank you so much. We're so glad to have you and everyone else here. And if you want to make sure your friends are benefiting from this as well, hit the like and the share button on your social media channel so that other people can benefit from Soulaima's wisdom as well. We want to say hi to Eddie, who's tuning in from the Netherlands. Umberto is here. Rena is joining us from the United Arab Emirates. We love having all of you, and please feel free to type your questions for Soulaima into the chat box. A great one came through, Soulaima, from Sushma. And she says, a founder might have a great idea, but how do you actually turn that into a vision that other people will understand? You were talking about the importance of pitching, of creating a pitch that, the financiers, the venture capitalists, and the angel investors would bite for. How do you actually take this kind of nascent idea that almost every startup founder has and turn it into something that is a compelling vision to others? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, the first thing is it's so easy to be focused too much on solving the problem, right? Like, for instance, I love process optimization. That's what Happioh is about, right? We're freeing up time for people, not only in meetings, but primarily when they meet other people. Because, we make decisions, we decide on action items, we distribute those, and it's really an optimization tool. It's kind of nerdy, but it's not very sexy, right? So how do you turn something that is very practical into something that is so visionary that people will support it with their money, and by activating their network of customers, more investors, all these things, right? It's by creating a vision of how life will be if everyone uses Happioh, if everyone uses your product. There's a life before you launched your product and a world after you launched the product. And that world after you launch your product, you will save millions of people's life, or thousands of people will be more happy, or whatever. It's or hundreds of millions of dogs will now survive cancer. Whatever your vision is, you have to be bold enough, and that takes a little bit of courage to put yourself out there and say, well, because of our product, millions of people, we claim that, will save 4 hours weekly. What do you do with that time? We have no opinion about that, but we're going to free up time for you at scale, right? That's a vision, and really making sure that people can relate to that vision. And you can only relate with people who have the same problem, a similar interest, or whatever. So don't expect everyone immediately jumps on your idea. Let's take Elon Musk, for example. He's very relevant right now since he bought Twitter. Not everyone wants to live at Mars, right? I'm sure a lot of people don't even think that's, maybe not possible or whatever, but it's so visionary that people will throw millions of dollars, actually billions, into his hands because it's so bold. Every investor or angel investor wants to sit around the dinner table somewhere and saying, hey, listen, I support this founder. She's a 7th grade school dropout. She's an Arab Danish founder. She moved to Silicon Valley, wanted to, free up time for people at scale. She's going to build a revolution of how people connect at work. I'm supporting her. You see, that's something that is so exciting that they can't help sharing with other people. That's really when you create the word of mouth. But the first thing is, do you dare to put yourself out there and create something that is so big that even you get a little scared about saying it?
So true, Soulaima. That's fantastic. There's power in having a big vision, and there's also power in having the right mentors. And Umberto has a question for you. He wants to know, what's your opinion about mentors? Do you have mentors? How did you find them? How did you cultivate them? Is it essential to have mentors if you're going to be successful in this?
Oh yes, right now I'm the face of Happio, but if you look at Happio, hundreds of people have put in hours, network, word of mouth, money, all these things. So I'm just a friction of the reason why we are successful. But yes, mentors are very important, and you have to seek out the right mentors. There has to be kind of a mentor founder fit. There has to be someone who know or at least sympathize or can empathize with the journey you are on. So for me, it's very helpful to talk to immigrant founders who are immigrants themselves. Men, women, doesn't matter too much, but someone who have been fighting against a lot of those biases or odds that you are up against. To be frank, some people who don't have those, have not had those obstacles, might not really know what you have to go through. Also, it's nice to have a mentor who's. So I have a few mentors, few female mentors who already IPO'd, who are already running public companies. They are 7 years ahead of me. Let's be honest here, at least 7 years ahead of me, I think. It's good to have them on the side so that you make the right fundamental steps from the beginning, because you can actually build your startup. You can put it on a path for success or for failure. So you really have to understand the fundamentals of building a future unicorn. That's actually a thing. That's one thing. But throughout the process, you need to work with people who still remember the hustle, who still remember what it feels like to being paid almost less than $30 an hour and not having a lot of resources, and that still knows the hustle of, or really understand and still remember that hustle. So make sure you have different degrees of mentors. So my point is, someone who can associate themselves with you, understand what you're going through. It's nice if they can have some industry knowledge, and they exactly can forecast what you're going to go through. And then of course they have to be accessible, right? They have to be someone who wants to pick up the phone. If you leave a message, they call you back. They have to be engaged with you. It's not the same as advisors, though. Advisors are usually experts that you maybe cannot pay in the beginning, so you give them a little bit of equity. You select them because they add valuable knowledge that you elsewise would have to pay for. So mentors and advisors, I think, some might disagree, I think are two different things, but mentors are people who help you on your journey.
Love that. Great answer. We're here with Soulaima Gourani. She is the founder of the startup Happioh. And if you want to learn more about Soulaima herself, you can go to her website. It's soulaima.com. And if you want to make sure you never miss one of our weekly Newsweek interview shows, I'm Dorie Clark. You can go to my website, dorieclark.com. You can sign up on the website, get a free self-assessment, and you'll be added to the email list. So you'll get reminders for great things like this. And we have time, Soulaima, for probably just one more question about how to go from zero to raising $1 million as you have done with Happioh. And a great question came in from a LinkedIn user about finding alignment with investors in your partnership. We know that sometimes investors, they may not even really see the vision that a startup founder is putting forward, but B, sometimes it's out of alignment. Sometimes their goals are different. Sometimes the way they think the business should be run or the goals of the business should be different. How do you stay in tune with your investors and make sure you are on the same page with these important people in your life?
Oh, that's a great question. I'll make it brief. The very first investors you get are probably most likely angel investors. Those are the people who can throw in $25, $50, $75,000. There's a bunch of them out there. It's actually a very vibrant community. Angels are super amazing because they invest in you. They know your product might change several times, and they don't really disrupt your day-to-day business. So angels are amazing. When it comes to VCs, they have an investment thesis. They are very industry specific. They are stage specific. So we are pre-seed, seed, A, B, all the stages. Make sure that you only pitch or only talk to investors who invest in your industry, in your stage, because you don't want to waste time. It's too valuable to waste time. If they invest more than 250,000, usually they can actually ask for a board seat. Most VCs will not do that very early on because you don't need a board, but they can. So just be aware, if you start accepting larger checks, they have a say. Of course they should have a say. They have now their own parts of your company. So of course they should have a say. Hence, be careful, no, not careful. You can't even be picky, but who can be picky in the beginning? Just have your eyes open that when you invite people in, they own parts of your company, they own parts of you. That's not bad. That's a challenge. But yeah, who can be picky in the beginning? Some founders can, someone cannot. It's just a fact of life. So you sell parts of your company and you have to deal with that. So if you can, in the ideal world, only pick investors you can work with. But let's be honest, sometimes you pick investors you don't work well with. That's the reality, right?
It is indeed. And this has been such valuable information for anyone who is thinking about creating their own startup or finding their own way to reinvent as you have done. We have been here with Soulaima Gourani. You can learn more about her business. It's happioh.com. You can learn more about Soulaima at soulaima.com. And you can make sure that you never miss one of our LinkedIn live streams for Newsweek. Our show is called Better. It's here every Thursday at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. Just go to dorieclark.com/LinkedIn. You can follow me there. You can subscribe to the newsletter and we can stay in touch. Thank you all for tuning in. And Salima Gharani, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, everyone, and see you next week.